Welcome to our webinar. This is sponsored by National Garden Bureau, but today we are talking about All America Selections. I'm Diane Blazek, the Executive Director of All America Selections. Open up your chat and you guys can tell us where you're from. And if you have any questions, please put those questions either in the chat or in the Q&A. I will be watching both. So if you see me glancing over there, I'm looking at your questions, but we definitely welcome questions for everybody. So let's get this started. I'm going to first introduce our panelists, who are all AAS judges. And so I'll do a quick introduction, and then what we can do is let each of you introduce yourselves. So what I'm going to do is, let's see here. I'm just going by my screen. We have Mark Conlock from Green Bay Botanic Garden. We have Amy Gonzalez from Syngenta. We have Connie Bile from William Dam Seeds, and we have Jesse Leibenguth from Ryman Gardens at Iowa State University. I got that right? No. Okay, well then we're going to go in backwards order, and Jesse, you introduce yourself and the firm you're with.
Sure. So my name is Jesse Leibenguth. It's the German pronunciation. And I am in our conservatory today at Ryman Gardens. So if you hear like mechanical noises, I'm going to try to mute those. But since I'm talking right now when an event decided to open. So I'm at Ryman Gardens. We are the Botanic Gardens of Iowa State University. So I'm smack dab right in the middle of the country. And we are zone, I think we're technically a 5A now. So.
Okay, thank you. And Connie. Whoops, looks like Connie maybe froze. We'll go on to Amy.
Hi, I'm Amy Gonzalez. I work for Syngenta Flowers, but you're going to hear me talk about vegetables because we do have a small home and garden vegetable program called Vegetalis, and I am the product manager for that line. And I work out of our Gilroy, California facility, which is central California on the coast, close to the coast.
Great, thank you. And Mark?
Hello, everybody. Mark Conlock, Director of Horticulture, Green Bay Botanical Garden. I've been here 21-ish years and trialing AAS plants for, I think, 15 plus years. And right now we do the ornamentals from seeds that are, in essence, the annuals grown from seed in the ground. So look forward to sharing about that.
Okay. And we'll have Connie and Kirsten back on. It looks like we're having some technical difficulties today. But one of the things that I wanted to start is you guys are all AAS judges. And so I was just curious, and maybe you can share with us, what's one of the most common questions you get about being an AAS judge or about AAS winners? And this could be, from people visiting your trials, or you're at a cocktail party and somebody asks what you do. And of course, you always say you're a volunteer AAS judge. So who wants to go first and answer that one?
I can pretty much, the main question I get actually is like, what is our trial when our guests are coming to our garden and like walking around? It does have a sign, obviously, that says it's a trial. But I do love explaining to them kind of like, the whole process of what it is, that it's an entry from a breeder and they have characteristics of plants that are going to be newer and better than what's on the market. And, it's a chance for us to like see it ahead of time and to be able to evaluate the newest, genetic material and explain it to them. And that's like the biggest question we get is just like, kind of what is this whole process and, why are you doing it, and explaining how we fit into this like national program is really exciting to like show that we're a part of something bigger than just our area.
Good answer, Mark. Kudos to you. Okay. Amy and Jesse, what's your question and how do you answer it?
Sure. I'm going to try to outmark Mark here. So a lot of people ask where they can purchase the winners and the entries that they see. So as a trial garden, we have a lot of things that aren't available to the market, as folks know. Everything is a blind trial. And so I can't tell people, if they see an entry that they love, where they can get it. But the next year when it's a winner, I can. And our AAS website has sources for pretty much everything. So you can go and look up any of the AAS winners, and there's a drop-down menu that says where you can buy things. And I love that because I had a gentleman come in once and asked where he could get Mad Hatter pepper. And so I tried to give him some ideas of online, and he was like, I'm just not a technical person. You know what? I'll have my son-in-law help. And so then maybe 2 weeks later, somebody from the front desk called and said, hey, you have a delivery here. And he had bought Mad Hatter pepper from one of the online sources and bought me a packet in gratitude. So
awesome.
That was just like a nice story.
That is super cool. Yeah. And by the way, so Gail is posting in the chat some links to our website. And so as we start going through each one of the winners, she will be posting those URLs also. And that's where you can see what Jesse was just talking about, the where to buy, and then it will link to our members and online seed sources, that kind of thing. So, okay, Amy, you're up next.
I am definitely not going to outdo Jesse or Mark here. I thought of this in terms of friends and family because I work out of a research station. We don't get a ton of public visitors. And honestly, they just asked me, what is AAS? Because I am kind of like Chandler from Friends. Like none of my friends or family really know what I do for a living. So it's more just what is AAS? But kind of to Mark's point, that we're trialing as part of a broader program.
Excellent. Okay, Kirsten and Connie, welcome back. Hopefully all of our technical difficulties are over with. And Kirsten, let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about you and your company, and then tell us what's the most common question you get about AAS. And by the way, kudos to you for wearing your glasses today. We all are wearing glasses, if you notice.
That is awesome. Yes. Yeah, you just got to embrace the glasses at some point too. So, so Kirsten DeLong, I'm with Pure Line Seeds. I do product development and trial management at Pure Line, and I've been here, I think 10 years now. And I think I said that last year, but who knows? It's been about 10 years. Pure Line, we're a US-based company, family owned since 1948. Our bread and butter is breeding legumes and doing seed productions on legumes, but we also have expanded our seed production capabilities in Washington and Colorado to other crops. And we also work with a lot of independent breeders and source their material, do testing for them here in the States, and sell exclusively for them in the United States. So that's a bit about Pure Line and myself. Probably the biggest question I get, there's two of them, but I think we're going to touch on one of them later. I don't know if somebody said this already, but people always ask me, what do you do with all the produce? And and of course, we're pretty strict about it. Nobody can come into the trials. We want to make sure that things aren't being taken, or especially before it's ready to be viewed. It's things that we're very cautious about. But once, we do judge it, we get a good look at it, then of course we have to taste test it. That's part of judging. And then after a lot of the main judging is done, of course, it's more or less for our family. We give it a lot away. So friends, people at church, things like that. So it's very well used and well loved and does not go to waste. That is for sure. And we have pigs now too. So, if there's any extras, it goes to the pigs. So
gotta feed those pigs.
You gotta feed those pigs.
Yeah, right. Okay. And Connie, are you available to tell us about you and what your company does? Looks like she's still connecting to audio. So I'll tell you what we'll do is we will get started with our PowerPoint, and Connie, just interrupt at any time when you have your audio ready. What we do have is our presentation of our 2026 winners. And luckily, the judges we have on our call today have trialed all of these. So let's first move to our first winner here, and it is the Basil Treviso So who would like to talk about the Basil Treviso?
I can go.
Okay.
So we trialed these in 14-inch containers. I put 3 plants per pot, and I was really impressed by the nice, tight, compact habit. It stayed very tight throughout the season. It only started to lodge at maybe the very end, and even that was not very dramatic compared to the comparison. I also was really impressed at how much slower it was to flower. So you had a lot more just leaf production before you got to the flowering point. I didn't have to do any, snipping to kind of keep it vegetative, to keep it going. It flowered towards the end of the season. It was good taste. I think it was a little bit more of like that anise taste than other basils I've tried, but it was not bitter. So it was a little bit of a unique taste, but it was also very good.
Okay. Would anybody like to talk about basil downy mildew? This is why this one won. And I don't know if all parts of the country have it. We just did a blog on it. And so Gail can post that in the thing. But have you had experience with it? How frustrating is it? What do you do? And is this the answer?
I'll just say I can't speak to that because in California we don't really have the problem. So
Okay.
Yeah, so in Iowa we do, and we've had basil downy mildew probably for, gosh, maybe even 10 years or so. There's a lot of good work coming out of university breeding programs like Cornell in New York that are breeding for this basil downy mildew resistance. It's not a silver bullet, especially when you have like a lot of humidity or rain that moves the spores around. But basically, like one day you go out and you have a row of beautiful basil plants, and then later that day you go out and they've completely defoliated. So, and there's no coming back from that. It's best to just dig everything up and toss it and buy your basil from the grocery store for the next season. So, selecting these mildew resistant strains is great. And what I've noticed across a lot of breeding is that just about every different kind of basil now has something that is a claim of resistance. So even Thai basil, the Genoese, all of those have a similar one. So, but it's I'm just going on now. Sorry. It's transmitted through the wind as well. And so if anybody, if your neighbor down the block has basil downy mildew, you'll likely get it within a couple days as well. So, buying the seed packet and then sharing it with all your neighbors is a great way to build company, but also prevent disease.
Yeah. Well, here in Chicago, we definitely have had it. And I remember back to, I think, 2012, 2013 was the first time I noticed it. They didn't have the resistant ones back then. So my method of overcoming it was I just planted early, harvested early, planted a second one, harvested early. So if you do have some that are not downy mildew resistant, that's one solution. The blog that we did had some other solutions. And then I do want to say that this has many different races, the downy mildew. And so this one that we're presenting, and we had another one last year that is downy mildew resistant, but who knows in 5 years, it's a virus and these things change. And so they will probably adapt and become even more powerful. And so we'll continue to come out with new varieties. So I just wanted to make it an education about downy mildew because it's definitely an issue. And Connie, I do want to come back to you. Are you here with us? Would you like to introduce yourself?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. Yeah. So I'm from William Dam Seeds, and we're in a rural part of Hamilton, Ontario, where we have really bad internet. We have about 5 acres of trials, vegetables, herbs, and flowers. And I will also agree that the downy mildew resistant basil makes it through our humid summers. I'm about the latitude of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So we have-
Recording in progress. Recording in progress. Recording in progress. Recording in progress. Recording in progress.
Okay, that was something to do with AI and I stopped it. So hopefully you can continue on.
Okay. Oh,
Okay, so one of the things I was going to say is it's very interesting how we have a wide variety of judges here. So we have a seed company, we have a public garden, we have a breeder, we have a public garden, we have 2 breeders. So we welcome everybody. Okay, let's move on to talk about, Kirsten, you get to talk about this one, Bean Majesty.
Yeah. One of our favorites. So this was bred by Pureline Seeds. So of course, one of our favorites. And so as a judge, I could not judge on this one because that would be a ton of bias. But the comparisons that it was up against, we had seen for many years as well. And so we were very well familiar and knew that it would do really good. So, so this is a pole bean. So it's great for vertical, anything vertical with this one. It's going to do wonderful. Like most beans, easy to grow, especially pole beans. I'm a big pole bean advocate. I mean, we breed beans is one of our biggest things we breed, and really love pole beans because not only the space saving, but you do get a lot of yield. And a lot of people think with the more the dwarf types or your bush beans, yeah, you get that one pick, but you can also get that much of a pick on a pole bean too, and then have another set and another set. So yes, with this one, you can see in this picture too, there's 6 beautiful pods right there, ready to pick. So it's typically there's 6 on a truss that you can pick. The beans are about 6 inches long and they are purple. The interiors are green. So, if you do cook them, most like any purple things, they will, the purple will bleach out. But if you do like a light steam or even if you do, I've done even some canning with them, like dilly beans and stuff. If you do a light process, it will retain its color quite nicely. So, and it's just very beautiful. And it's a more of a tender. So a lot of purple things tend to be very purple, like they're very that rich in the anthocyanin, which is nice, but also sometimes the color affects the taste. It gets very sometimes bitter. So this one we really tried to focus on bringing in sweetness to it. A sister line of this variety is actually Seychelles, which is also an AAS winner. It's a green potted, and that one has amazing taste. So we really tried to bring that into this. So like I said, they're sister lines. And so they both pair really nicely with their flavor. They're sweeter, especially this one is a lot sweeter than a lot of other purple potted pole beans. And then it does have none that are claimed here. We're still doing more disease testing on this, but there is, better disease resistance for this variety than a lot of the older purple pole beans on the market.
Great, thank you. Okay, so you're the breeder of it, but Amy is a judge and she doesn't have a stake in the game on this one. So Amy, what can you tell us about Majesty bean?
Well, the good news is I can reiterate a lot of what Kirsten said. I was really impressed with the pod size compared to the comparisons. They were quite a bit larger, a lot larger seeds. So it was really nice to have that like slender and it's still very tender pod when cooked. I did boil them. They did turn green, but didn't affect the taste. I didn't find it bitter at all. The yield was good. It held up to, I had a lot of insect damage on all of the lines, but this one held up better than the comparisons. I think they maybe just preferred the other lines over this one for whatever reason, but that's a good problem to have. Nice, tidy habit, even though it is kind of climbing and all over the place. Just a beautiful overall plant, beautiful flowers. And yeah, I think just recovered from heat stress. Yeah, it was great. I enjoyed eating beans all summer long.
Yeah.
So
Fun to give purple beans to kids too. I bet they love those. Okay, now we're going to move on to the Coreopsis sun globe. And I think we have a number of people who wanted to talk about this one. Let's see here. Mark, how about you start us off on the Coreopsis?
Okay, yeah. Well, when I'm doing the trialing, I always really love to see what the breeder says about the plant and then to see if it's true. And this one, there was the claim that it bloomed earlier, and it for sure did. It was like about 2 weeks earlier than the comparisons for us, which was really important. It's important for greenhouses and people selling crops, early so that they can get a jump on the season. And then for you as a gardener, of course, it's blooming longer, and it did bloom, consistently all season long. And a lot of these annuals that we trialed had the similar thing where they're all, very uniform between the different seedlings and tidy, compact habits, no insect or disease problems on these guys. And like it says here on the slide, you can even have it push, from spring all the way into fall. So it's really great because it blooms all season long, early and late. And I don't know if it was trialed as a container plant, but like a lot of these nice little moundy guys can be stuck into containers like that, or even fall or spring containers. So just a great plant and out competed the competition consistently throughout the whole trial.
Great, thanks. Who else wanted to add something about the Coreopsis?
I could mention also that Diane actually came and visited our garden last summer. And when we were out walking the trials and geeking out, Diane said, oh, actually, like, this isn't performing as well as the comparisons. And I said, oh, no, Diane, like, this was in bloom and we're about to have a second flush. Like, that's how much further along this was than the others. So we don't do any deadheading or anything like that in our trials. So it like you could see the old flowers, but if you did, if you didn't have huge multiples of them like we do, you could easily tidy them up.
Excellent. Kirsten or Connie, anything?
I would also like to say it germinated very quickly and easily.
That's always important when you're starting from seed. Okay, Kirsten, do you want to wrap up anything about the Coreopsis?
Sure. I mean, to mark what you're saying, yeah, this one was a container trial as well, and it did really good in the containers. I can just echo what everybody said with the loads of blooms, bloomed forever, but it was so tidy and so compact. And it just fit. Like, it kept blooming. I did deadheading on one pot and didn't do deadheading on another pot, and the plant would still stay small. So it just keep blooming, but stay small.
Excellent. And that's probably something we should talk about, is the fact that when a breeder enters something, they have an option of an in-ground trial or a container trial, and sometimes they choose both. So as you're hearing our judges talk about that, they're going to talk about how it was trialed in ground or in the container or both. So that was always interesting. Okay, our next one that we have is the Dianthus Supra Cherry Picotee. So who wants to start us off on that one?
I can. So we had a really hot, humid summer last year, and this was supposed to be under partial shade cloth because Dianthus typically like cooler season. But this made it through with 35, 90-degree weather, and kept on blooming. It did very well in the heat. And then when it got to its actual preferred climate, it was great all fall. So I love the bicolorness of it and the big flowers.
Yeah, I agree. We had a really hot summer as well, and it just bloomed endlessly, very showy. This was another one too, stayed very compact, and the leaves stayed so nice and green against the flowers.
Diane, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Like, this is in a series, right?
Correct.
So within the last couple of years, we've started testing things within series. So before we were testing and saying cherry picotee had to be better than, is it purple? Is that the other one?
Super purple, super pink. Yeah, those are two others.
But that, if they perform as well as they should as a series, then they weren't getting awards. So now we know that they're within the series, and we can say that it performs as well as the others, which awards, the breeding line of the whole thing. And agreed, like, this is just as good as the other one. So it gives you a different option if you're not into purple or pink. You want something more
Gives
fun.
you a bicolor option then as part of the series. Yeah. All right. Let's see here. Anybody else? Mark or Kirsten, did you have anything else to add, or should we go on to the Heliopsis? Okay. Next up, another yellow one. I love this because I love yellow in my yard. I love the big splash of color. So like Jesse, I think you trialed this one because it was in our perennial trial, which was over 3 winters.
So Heliopsis can be tricky for us because we have very cold, very wet winters. And so sometimes that doesn't benefit Heliopsis. So perennial trials for AAS are 2 winters, 3 growing seasons, with a final report after the 3rd winter. And these held up very well. We had very few die in winter. And actually, we are just down the road from a USDA research station, and one of the guys there does daisy crops. And he was walking our trials with me, and he was like, "What is that?" And I said, "I can't tell you yet. You have to wait." So I put it on my calendar to let him know when it would be announced as a winner. So what's really nice about this Heliopsis specifically is that it is very compact. A lot of times, when you buy a Heliopsis, it gets real leggy, it gets real floppy. It's just, it's hard to convince people to plant things like this when they're, misbehaviors. And this would fit right into any other mixed plantings. It wouldn't have to go into, like your little pollinator garden that you have over here that's kind of wild and woolly. It was beautiful. It bloomed. It's a double flower, so it's just eye-catching. We loved it.
One of the things that I see somebody has asked here is, for a perennial trial, like how many plants does each judge plant? So we typically send out about 12 or ask you to plant or transplant about 12 plants. And so when Jesse was talking about survivability and how many came back, so our judges look at that. And if only 50% come back, then it gets a lower score. But this one had very good survivability. So thank you for that, Jesse. Okay, now we've got one that I think everybody wants to talk about. This is Kale Rubybor. And if you see by the logo, it is a gold medal winner. That means it's just way above and beyond exceptional. And here's what's interesting. It was trialed in the edible trial. So our edible judges had to taste it. It was trialed in our ornamental trial. And then in both cases, it was trialed both in ground and in containers. So I'll let you guys go to town to tell us about this one.
I was going to say, I'm going to fight Kirsten on this one, and for time to talk about this. My overall note was it made me want to eat kale, right? That nothing else had ever done before. It was just amazing. And the deer were my trial partners. They kept eating it all summer long, and it just kept coming back. So they helped me see what the harvest bounce back was like. And I just continued to let them instead of fencing it off. But yeah, beautiful plant, compact, short internodes. The color was beautiful and really tender, tasty leaves.
Okay, now I'm going to have to ask you, describe internodes, because you're talking like a breeder.
So the leaf will have a stem part. So that's what we call the internode. So we like to have them short and not too long and leggy. That's a good explanation.
Okay, great. Thanks. Who else wants to chime in?
I'll go next, since we're fighting Amy on this one. This one definitely deserved the gold medal, obviously, because it got the gold medal, and it is rare that something gets a gold medal. I mean, Diane, you could probably say more to that, but I've been a judge for 8 years now, and it's very rare, but it definitely deserved it. One of the things I noticed right away, even when I went to go transplant these, brilliant purple, like even this picture just does not do it justice. Like in Wisconsin here, I wish I could pull up all my pictures, because this was by far, we have a huge trial at Pure Line, of all the varieties we're trialing too. And we have our own kale we're looking at. We've got a purple kale that I adore. And this one, and you cannot be biased as a judge, and it was right next to it, and it was much better. The color was so purple right from transplant. A lot of times it'll still be pretty green, and then it takes till the cool evenings to get that to kick in that purple. And it didn't need the cool evenings to kick in that purple color, and it just stayed purple through the heat. A lot of times kales too can get really leggy and bolty, and they just kind of look a little scary. And this one was not that at all. Yes, the short internodes, but just the whole plant was kind of a cross between like more of an upright but a bush. And it was just beautiful. And the taste too was good. You know, a lot of times kales aren't the greatest on the taste scale, but this one to me was a little bit spicy, but still with tender leaves, and not too fibrous.
Awesome. Okay, so we hear about the edible aspects. Now let's hear from our ornamental judges as to what your thoughts are.
Well, I can also say that it was amazing in containers. We have a container that is about this big around, whatever that is. And we did 3 plants per container, and they just filled the container out and looked really nice without like overwhelming everything. Like Amy had a deer partner, we had caterpillar issues the entire season, and they ate everything in all of our trials, all the kale except for Rubybor. And I think it's due to that really very frilly surface that, like, you know, they just can't find where to get on it. Or maybe the caterpillars were even just like, oh, this is beautiful, I'm going to leave this one alone. And just as an edible judge, I will mention that we had lots of different volunteers harvesting this last summer with various knowledge of how much is too much. And it would bounce back incredibly well. Even like we had like a group of little kids come and take like maybe all but like the top 3 leaves. And the next week we had the same amount to harvest. So it's an amazing producer.
Very fun.
Yeah, it did really great for us too. And the other thing that I like to think about using it in our botanical garden grounds is we like kind of gotten away a little bit from like a fall specific like switch out to our planting. So we try to incorporate things that'll look good in the fall in our summer plantings. And this would be a great plant because it could look good in a spring container or spring in ground with, you know, cool season crops like pansies and snapdragons and things. You could leave it in and just add your, you know, summer plants around it. And then you could even leave it in or build it into your fall display. So it's like a multi-season plant with one plant. So definitely a great ornamental. And then learning that it's even edible and tasty was something that I learned from listening and seeing this presentation. So that's awesome too.
We had comparisons for the Rubybor, but last year was the year of the edible garden. So we also had lots of Rudbeckia in our display gardens, which is a sister to this, as it turns out. And the Rubybor was more compact with more leaves, so had more ornamental appeal. But I just loved that the color was there from beginning to fall. So, and in our garden, the praying mantis also appreciated it.
Sounds like it served everybody. No wonder it's a gold medal winner. So, well, that's great. And I'm just sitting here looking at it and I'm thinking, you know, it just gets prettier and prettier and tastes even better in the fall. Not only to eat, but like to decorate your Thanksgiving turkey. You can use it as the accoutrements around your turkey if you still have that much left at that time. But okay, so I'm going to go plant this. That's one that I haven't planted yet, so I need to do so. Okay.
I was going to say, I clicked on the link so I can find out where to buy it.
Okay,
So.
good.
Diane, can I give you a little bit of trivia about kale?
Oh, absolutely.
So apparently Pizza Hut was the world's largest purchaser of kale back when they did buffets, because if you are, you know, of an 80s or 90s generation, you remember that all of their buffets were surrounded by kale leaves. And so when they dropped that, you know, the kale market kind of dropped for a bit, but now people are discovering that it's delicious and not just a pretty leaf on a plate.
This is true. That's very interesting. I like that trivia. I'm going to have to use that in some of my presentations now. Thank you, Jesse. Okay, so now we're going to go to another ornamental. This is a Rudbeckia Claire Orange. And so which one of our edible judges? I think Mark and Connie, you really liked this one.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Yeah, I love this one. So I have to confess that golden orange is my least favorite color. But as a judge, you can't be biased by what your favorite color is. You need to look at the quality of the plant, the quality of the color. And this was an outstanding little Rudbeckia. So compact. It bloomed all summer, and it bloomed into fall when a lot of Rudbeckias start to get that wilt disease. It's so great. We're selling it. So my favorite winners make it to our seed catalog. Another competitor had one this past year, and it was not as good as Claire Orange. So,
and what I envision using this one for is I like to host a lot of baby showers, bridal showers, and that. And I'm thinking, oh, put it in little containers and have it on centerpieces. If somebody has this color theme for their wedding, or maybe a fallish harvest type theme, it would be beautiful. And I think it's great in containers. Did you want to say anything else, Mark?
Pretty much just second everything Connie said. It was nice, short, compact, tidy, flowered for like the long time, and then also had that great, like disease resistance that sometimes Rudbeckias can to succumb to later. So it did everything. And then also like the interesting thing learning from the breeder sheet is that it's pollen free. So like it's a good kind of like cut flower or something that's not going to sprinkle that stuff, the pollen all over the place.
Yeah, I think that's why I was thinking using it as centerpieces. So yeah, a short cut flower or as a centerpiece, that'd be great. Okay, now we're going to move on to another perennial winner that we had, and this is called Sedum Spectacular. So this is another perennial that, as Jesse was talking about earlier, was grown over 3 winters. It is a seed variety. A lot of the sedum you see is vegetatively propagated, maybe tissue culture, I'm not sure. So that's what was so unusual about this one. And our judges really liked it. It's a national winner. A sedum, it is the year of the sedum, by the way. We'll have Gail post that in the chat there, because with National Garden Bureau, we are celebrating all types of sedum. But what's great is that it can be drought tolerant. So, once it gets established, then you don't have to give it as much tender loving care, I'll say. And hardy in zones 3 through 9. And I think a couple of you might have had a little experience. Who wants to comment on Sedum Spectacular?
So the germination was really good. And it's nice. Like, that you could treat this as an annual and you would love it. Like it would just put in a container, be done with it, whatever. It would like a little bit drier winter than what we have. So we did see some dieback in this one in our garden. But the perennial gardens here, our trials, have the toughest row to hoe because they have very little irrigation. It's pretty rock solid soil out there. So they did perform really well during the summer in that drought situation. They are like nice, compact, because a lot of these, pink headed sedums, like are beautiful, and then they start to flop and then they all break off and your dog like runs through them, or maybe that's just me. And this has a much nicer habit.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that about the flopping, because this is more compact. You're not going to have that flopping. And I'm also glad you said that about the germination, because I actually have these. I'm getting ready to start them. And I'm not the professional horticulturist like you guys are. So I'm like, I have my little home set up and I'm hoping that I can germinate them as well as our judges did. So thank you for that. Okay, now we're going to move back to another vegetable. And I love the name of this. It's called squash butter lamp. And I believe, Kirsten, you had really good luck with this one.
Yeah, this one, it did perform very well for me. So the year, because I think this is when we actually trialed 2 years ago. So I actually was at a different trial ground at the time. So we grew our pumpkins on trellises, and it was very interesting to see the yield. We did that for a number of years, and it was always very interesting to see the yield that way. And that was probably one of the biggest things I noticed with this variety was not only that it was early to mature and that you could tell when it was mature, because that's of course sometimes a challenge with some pumpkins, but it was also the maturity. There was a lot of fruit. And it was a fairly manageable plant too, so it wasn't too crazy, you know, taking over the whole entire trellis. And of course the rind color is just so stunning. It was very beautiful rind color with the interior flesh, cooked up very nice, tasted really good. I do love uh, butternut squashes or just squashes in general, winter squash, pumpkins, and love advocating for people to eat them. And so this would make a great ornamental, but please eat it because it's so tasty and it does hold well through the winter too. So we do storage trials as well, which goes past the judging because you know that is cut off, but it's still something that's always interesting and we keep in mind. So yeah, it was really nice for the storability as well. That's not mentioned here. So I really did enjoy this variety. I think it'd be a good one to, yeah, add to your collection of things that it tastes good. And of course that shape too, you know, you could carve it out and you could even put like a custard in it and bake it. Like I love things that are a little bit more round like that, but still flattened a little bit. So you can do a lot of things when you're cooking this one. So those are my highlights.
Gave me a lot of ideas. Yeah. Carving them and then baking a custard in them. That's interesting. And
favorite.
So,
yeah.
That sounds very fun. Okay, now we are going to move. Kirsten, we're going to keep you on screen because I think you liked this one. And this is from another Wisconsin breeder. So it's really funny. The name of this one is making this thing go crazy. I talked to the breeder a couple months ago and he was just like, wow, this is doing really, really well. And I think a lot of news outlets are picking it up. So it's called Tomato Bada Bing.
Yeah, this one is really fun. And so I'm trialing in Wisconsin, but we don't know the breeders, like who enters the varieties or anything like that. So it is always fun afterwards to see, you know, if something won or maybe something didn't win for various reasons or they're holding off the award. But it's always really interesting and fun. So, and we love AP Whaley. If anybody can ever go visit them, they're in southern Wisconsin, in the hills there. It's amazing. So they're just a fun company in general, but this variety also, it is a larger cherry. So not like a tiny grape. It is a bit larger, but still, you know, snackable. I think that was the best part of it. We look at a lot of cherry tomatoes as AAS judges. And so this one stood out for me, it was the color. It always comes down to taste a lot of times with these cherries because there's so many and you're like, does it really taste better than some of the varieties on the market? And this one did. And of course it has the disease resistance, but probably for me, some of the biggest things were the taste on this, the color, that it didn't crack too easily, but yet the skin wasn't too tough. It's a fine line. You want something that does hold, but isn't too tough. And so this one kind of had a good combination of all of that. So
yeah, it's funny you say that because the number of tomatoes that come through the AAS trials, I'm sure some of our judges are just like pulling their hair out sometimes because there's so many, and I would think your taste buds just get kind of fried by August or so when you're like, okay, I've tasted so many of these. But yeah, this is going to be a really good one. Did anybody else have anything to say about Bada Bing? Okay. So let's move on to, which I believe is our final one. And we're back to ornamentals. And this is another gold medal winner. The Zinnia Profusion series, pretty much everything that they put into the AAS trial gets a gold medal. So it's a very, very good Zinnia. Let's hear, Mark, let's hear from you and then Connie about Zinnia Profusion Double White Improved.
Okay, yeah, this was amazing. Again, look at the breeder information, and I kind of at first was like, oh, well, another white Zinnia, exciting. But when we did plant it out, it was amazing. It did bloom earlier than the comparisons, and it bloomed the whole time. It does have like kind of a pure white flower color, I would say, that, you know, if you look at the picture here, you can kind of see that. And then it was like compact, tidy, uniform between all the plants, bloomed the whole time, didn't ever get sprawly or spread it out, which some of the comparisons eventually did way down the road. But I mean, it was pretty impressive, and I couldn't believe it, honestly, and I was very impressed with the plant throughout the whole trial, and it really made me a believer when at first I was skeptical of like another great white zinnia being out there on the market. So it won me over for sure, and I was very impressed with it, and would be interested to see what Connie has to say. And Jesse.
Yeah, I agree. It was the first to bloom and it has beautiful blooms. And I didn't give it a gold medal because at the end of the season, it started to have it had more disease issues than the comparisons for my garden. We may have had a lot of cold nights and rain, but over the whole summer, it was a standout. Yeah, the color was always good. The habit, the Profusion series is just a very good series. So yeah, I am excited to have it in my display garden this summer.
It will be there. Well, okay, so that's something we haven't talked about. And let's hear 1, 2, 3 of you are display gardens. Who wants to explain what an AAS display garden is? We've got a little bit of time left here.
I can do that. So the display gardens have the last 3 years of AAS winners in them. There's a network across the continent of, let's say, about 150 or so gardens.
150 to 200, it fluctuates every year.
Yeah. So whatever part of the continent you're in, you should be able to find a garden that's displaying all these winners so you can actually see these plants in living color near you. And they're open to the public so that garden writers, the public that's interested, anyone can come and see the winners.
And it looks like Gail just posted a link for us. We do have a page on our website that says visit an AAS display garden. So you can go there and enter your state or whatever state you're visiting, and you'll be able to see them. The other two that we have are Mark at Green Bay Botanic and Jesse at Ryman Gardens in Iowa. So those are also two of our somewhere between 150 and 200 display gardens throughout US and Canada. So because we have a little time left, I've got some trivia or fun facts that I'm going to quiz our judges on. I think you're going to know these answers, but we'll ask them anyway. And you can all speak at once if you want to. What year was AAS founded?
1934.
You're close. You're close.
1933.
Yeah, good enough. Yes. It was founded in 1932. The first year of trialing was in 33 and our first winners were 1934. So that was the timeline. So there you go. Good job, Connie. Connie was a former president of All America Selection, so I was hoping she'd be the first one to answer that. Okay. As of today, how many winners have there been since its founding in 1932?
438.
Yes,
Try higher.
500 plus.
Try higher.
900.
Yes, 918 to be exact. Now, not all of those are currently on the market, but yeah, well over 900. So there's two categories that are like the most popular for entries and winners. Can you guess what those two categories are?
Do you mean like
tomatoes?
edibles, or do you mean tomatoes?
Well, tomatoes is the edible one, and then we've got an annual. What might be the annual?
Zinnias.
No?
Petunias?
Yes, petunias. Yes, we have, I don't have the exact numbers, but I know those are the two largest categories. And we didn't really talk about this. How many different trial types do we have?
6?
I say 6.
Plus 1, 7. Yeah. So we have our annuals from seed, and we do container and in-ground. Then we have our annuals from vegetative cutting, container and in-ground. We do our edibles, container and in-ground, and then we have our perennials. So that's our 7 trial types But we also do these series trials that Jesse was talking about. So actually it's more than 7. Okay, 2 more questions. How many trial sites do we have? So each of you are at a site. How many different trial sites do we have?
30?
50?
86.
I think I heard it. Jesse, what'd you say?
86.
We're at 80, so close enough. And our last question, are our judges paid or are you volunteers?
Volunteers.
Volunteers.
We
Yeah.
are paid in
I-
produce
True.
and
Wow.
getting to see the genetics before everybody else.
And
Which
the
is
prestige, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And the people that we get to meet being judges. It's been amazing.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And
that's good. It's a good group.
industry knowledge. That was a big thing for me coming into it. It was like, oh yeah, I've seen that. And it might not be a crop we even work in. So
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, we now have told everybody about our most recent AAS winners. There will be more in July and November of this year. We'll be rolling out the 2027 winners. So just keep an eye on our website, keep an eye on your newsletters that you get from the National Garden Bureau All-America Selections Office. But we need to thank these judges that are on our panel, plus the other 70-some judges that we have out there. I mean, AAS would not exist without our judges, and it's just great to see the variety and the insights and the expertise that they lend. So with that, I'm going to say thank you to our judges. Now go out, take care of your AAS entries and everything. So
Looks like a good year.
yes, we hope to have many more new winners in the next year or two. So thank you, everybody, and enjoy your afternoon.